The following discussion is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered any kind of financial advice.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Jump Pod. My name is Chris Albrecht. I'm your co-host. And as always, I'm here with Grant Hart. Grant, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Back. We took a little bit of a break, got kind of busy last week, but we were back better than ever, stronger than ever. And we couldn't have a better guest to join us today. We are lucky and thrilled to have Masha Vyazemskaya, who is the head of communications and marketing at Rarible. Welcome to the show, Masha.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we begin or get too far, tell us a little bit about what Rarible does.
So Rarible is an aggregated NFT marketplace. We really take pride in, being community centric and, sticking to this promise. So Rarible, I can say is probably one of the blue chip NFT marketplaces. So we've been around since early 2020 on the market and, have really been, riding the wave and, seeing how the market evolved because from when Rarible just started, it was, a tiny market and now it, has become to something probably nobody could really have imagined at that point. We're an aggregated community marketplace, but we also do have some other products like community marketplaces and then Rarible protocol. I'll be happy to touch more on that as we continue to speak today.
Masha, we met in 2020, right? Through all the crypto
Right.
madness and everything when I was at Rally. And, just to start off and give you guys a huge compliment, being a huge fan of Rarible, the artists that we were talking to on the Rally side were extremely complimentary of Rarible and your guys' backing of artists and backing of projects. How has it been for you? Like, where did you start in your Web3 journey, and then how did it lead you to Rarible? Because I know you were very passionate about the community side and backing artists. So do you come from an artist background? How did you get to Rarible and then, seeking that passion?
Yeah, I don't have an artist background. I thought I never had the skill for that, but my experience has mostly been in communications. And I started to just interact with this space back in 2017, where a lot of when it was the first wave of people entering the scene. And then I've worked with several projects on marketing and communications. And in 2019, I actually launched my own PR studio with my twin sister. That is called It Takes Two. And then I met Rarible founder, one time before in 2019, and we even worked on a small research project. So we, stayed in touch. And then even though I never had, a creator background really, I worked in entertainment pretty closely. So coming more from music side, I worked with Gibson on entertainment relations. I worked for a local music label back, from where I'm from. So I've always been kind of close to, the creator scene. Actually it was my sister who noticed, CryptoKitties back, when they just started, and she has been really excited about the, concept of NFT super early on. And I can say that, I just bought in instantly to the idea because it was early 2018, I guess, when we, started to look at that. But then when Alexei, Rarible's CEO, came to us to, just asking how we can support the launch of Rari token, we were super happy, to assist with communications on that front. And the team was super small then. It was 7 people. And when we saw how fast it started to grow, I quickly made the decision to just join full time in house because I saw that yes, this is the thing and the team I want to work with and the project I want to work on. So that's the brief history.
Yeah,
So
I
is
was
your
going to say.
sister? So how did it go with? I'm just, you started business with your sister. Was she super stoked because you were going into Web3, or she was like, "Hey, wait a minute, we were
Well,
together."
our PR studio worked with Web3 companies actually. So we work with other, great teams so like Anchor, Apodachi. So, and she also stayed in Web3 and the studio is actually functioning, but just more on the consulting side of things right now. But yeah, she's feeling great. And yeah,
Shout out to
she's super happy.
the Rarible team, one of the coolest teams I've ever been around. I had the pleasure of being around you guys at NFT NYC, and you guys were like the coolest group of people. And a huge shout out to Alexi, because he's one of the most humble, like most calm CEOs of a major platform I've ever met. I mean, just the nicest guy. So huge shout out to you guys. You guys have the best culture, I feel like. So you guys have been very creator first, and you guys take a lot of pride in that. What is it like being creator first in this market right now, and how do you guys continue to push that community boundary of like, hey, we are not gonna bow down to these the royalty situation. We are gonna stay strong on that, and we're gonna continue to build and support creators. Like, what is your experience? Because marketing and such, how has that changed?
Yeah, it's a really good question because, even for this past 2 years that I've been, working in the NFT scene, like it has changed so significantly. And then, from what it meant for us when we were starting to be, the creator first, we have always been in really close touch with our community. So, when we're talking about Web3 marketing and generally when I think about, marketing in the space, it always comes down to the community, but not in some like abstract social media forum, but actually like talking to people, who you're doing this for, like who is actually your audience. And I think when we started and when we were super, super small, we just like talked to the creators and last ask like, hey guys, what do you want to see here? What tools do you need? What you can benefit from. And I think that's where, really the success of Variable started. And, we've grown so fast, and to some extent, we really kind of shifted the focus because right now, PFP is the largest segment of the market. But, from the creator standpoint, we also allow a lot of, we provide different tools like allowing them to create their own community marketplaces, and yeah, just create conditions for their community and allowing them to, for additional fees to go into the community treasury. And then we've always been, staying in touch and collaborating with artists and yeah, just highlighting them by all the means that we can. And when the question really, came up, as we've been seeing, how things are going with the royalties right now, which is a pretty wild ride and a pretty wild thing to see, to witness, we just took a stop and, really asked ourselves, like, how does it fall into our strategy, what our strategy is, and, with the, brand that Rarible has built and with the values that we have always been, kind of putting forward, is just like not even a question for us, like whether we should, keep royalties or get rid of them. Like we just, we remain strong in the stance that royalties will be and will remain like obligatory on rarible.com and on our community marketplaces. And on community marketplaces, which exist as a separate product, as I mentioned, we also allow like additional fees to go into community treasury on top of that from every trade. So it feels like, the market is in such a shape that it's a very competitive environment. But like I believe that Rarible is in the game in the long run, and just like destroying the relationships with creators, that were there in the first place, is kind of like shooting yourselves in the foot.
What are you hearing from your creators in that regard then? So, some creators have thrown in the towel and said, we're just not going to do royalties, right? Are you still hearing a lot from the people on Rarible, like we want to keep them, or are they sort of resigned to them going away, or what is sort of the general sentiment?
Yeah, I think the general sentiment is really that people want to receive royalties, of course, and I think that has always been one of the key promises of, blockchain technology and NFTs, creator monetization, that, creators can continue to monetize their work, not only, one time sell, because that, that's what happens, if you sell a print or whatever, but actually being able to track, where your art is and to still benefit from that is something that creators, of course, from what, we're seeing, at least people really want to keep and to maintain. because on other side, from more kind of my standpoint, when, you just take away, the royalties and ongoing revenue stream, then like creator, it's also they're less incentivized to continue, like putting so much effort in the project because, like they don't feel as valued, I guess. So, yeah, like we haven't really seen people who are like, oh, just like we don't care, take away those royalties, we don't want to receive them. So, yeah, we haven't really seen that.
It is one of those things, right? You bring up a really good point of, it's like it's the resource that a lot of these projects and creators rely on. Like, in your opinion, you've been in this a little bit, right? Like longer than a lot of people have. Going back to days like CryptoKitties, right? Like, did you ever see this happening? And if you did you ever see it happening like this? Like, because it was like, I feel like we woke up and it was just 0% royalties. Was like, if you're doing it, you better be doing it. If you're not, like, uh-oh. Did you feel like it was like a sudden change? And do you think that because it happened so fast, it'll be back just as fast, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I don't have like a definite answer for that. I think we haven't really seen, any previous examples there in Web3, in blockchain ecosystem at least. But I feel like it's largely related to just the way that marketplaces work. So right now, when the space, has become so competitive and marketplaces, of course, rely on network effect, which right now is largely, concentrated with OpenSea. And so a lot of market participants are just, and especially, newer ones who haven't been on the market for such a long time, maybe don't have, that established identity. They are just like forced to compete for that market share. And, it just like happens so that, how else we can, improve, the kind of costs and revenue model. And, right now it happens just like on behalf of the creators and
Right.
their royalties.
One thing that I wanted to talk about, because I think what you guys are doing is very cool and it's very innovative, and it ties into this, supporting the creator aggregated style of a marketplace. Can you talk to us a little bit about the white label marketplaces that you guys have been doing, right? For DAA, for MFers, for a lot of very popular projects that maybe people do or do not know that you guys are a part of, because I do think it's very trailblazing as we move forward to this 0%. Can you talk about the aggregation, how your guys' API, automatically lists from other platforms? I think that's so interesting and cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Yeah, so like taking one step back, we have Rarible protocol, and Rarible protocol is essentially an underlying infrastructure that allows to build projects of different levels of complexity, utilizing, the order book from Rarible and also from other marketplaces. So essentially, that creates this like interconnected, intertwined ecosystem, and provides tooling to build, whatever you want, like whether it's like minting and marketplaces or, built-in app, like use cases. So a lot of different things. And so, and like two main products that we have is first Rarible.com, which is, the Rarible that most of the people know. And then like a lot of other projects are actually building on the Rarible protocol already, but our, own offering is this product about community marketplaces. And we have a self-serve tool. So right now, actually, anybody can come, and if they own a collection, they can click a button, fill in a few fields, and create their own marketplace just in a matter of minutes. So it's as simple as that. And we are, working on continuously adding different functionality to that and make it more flexible. So we're working on that. And then, yes, we are also offering white glove services for some of the brands, for, some of the bigger collections, as you mentioned, the Degenerate Ape Academy, Pixel Vault, Emphers. So this is something that we're also doing to showcase, how the alternative NFT world can look like that is not tied to centralized marketplaces. So how it can still, benefit from all of the same infrastructure and tooling, but then allow whatever flexibility and increase, the safety and the well-being of the community. So that is the core value proposition of that.
I wonder, Masha, can you tell us a little about what your day to day is like, right? So you're head of marketing communications for Rarible. Are you also helping out any of the projects that are listed on your site? Does Rarible help, like, give them, like, okay, now you've listed, here's a toolbox for how to best market your new project or whatever? Can you just give us a sense, like, what do you do in a typical day?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we don't do that, what you mentioned, but I love the idea. It's really nice.
There you go. Perfect. Alexa's
Glad I could be of help. There you go.
Yeah, so from the day to day, like I typically start my day by, just like going on Twitter and, monitoring the market, seeing, what happened, just like like also in Slack, because we have a pretty, robust system of people, sharing feedback, like the team just like discussing what's going on. So, because the space moves so fast, so really keeping up to date with everything. And then a lot of my time goes to, talking to the team. So like for one-on-ones and, communication with our product team, communication with our business development team. So there's a lot of like always we're always in the conversation and collaborating with other teams. And then yeah, for instance, when we were preparing Rarible 2 launch and that campaign, like of course a large chunk of the time goes into preparing the messaging and going through that like with marketing team and then sharing it to the wider team. So I think right now we have 8 people in the marketing team, so mostly my day looks like communicating internally in the first place, and then creating an environment where like my team can be in a place where they can communicate externally. So that's how I put it.
And that's a nice
Can you,
segue to Rarible 2.
I was just going to bring that up. Perfect
Yeah.
minds think alike. This is why we host the show together, Chris. So Lexi was speaking at NFT San Francisco, and you guys dropped Rarible 2.
Mm-hmm.
Please give us the scoop on what Rarible 2 is and how does this change Rarible 1, right? Like the base
Yes.
version of Rarible 1. And why should people be excited? Why should people be checking this out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rarible.com was and still is a marketplace primarily, but Rarible 2 brought the changes that right now make it an aggregated NFT marketplace. So while still, people can utilize all the familiar functionality, to create items, to list items, and buy items from Rarible specifically, right now we're also aggregating orders from LooksRare, from X2A2, and some of the other marketplaces. And like most of the changes for Rarible to really come from the UX side. So the team has been working really hard to make sure that it's a really smooth experience for trading NFTs. And then, we can also offer the best possible prices on the market. So I think, yeah, for me, it's, all coming together as, the market becomes more interconnected. So that is the kind of core from the product side. But then also we're able to introduce new rare rewards. And, that was something that, we launched, as I mentioned, in 2020. And then creators and buyers really loved, of course. And after a pause, it is back on Rarible.com, and their rewards work for buying and for listing in 5 collections on a weekly basis that holders of rare tokens vote on. So like every week you can come in and cast your locked rare, cast your votes for the collection that will be receiving the rewards the following week. So it is, we are incentivizing trading and doing so in a sustainable manner as possible on the market right now.
How are you guys weighting the voting? That's very interesting. So I've heard of community rewards, right? We did something like that at Rally, but to vote on that, how have you guys installed that mechanism and that technology into Rarible 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is an interesting story about, gradual decentralization. And one of the important things that also happened, that Rary Foundation was launched, which right now is an independent legal entity, absolutely independent from Rarible.com, from Rarible team. So, and it is established in a way that allows Rary token holders to vote and, to exist in the legal, environment, in the legal field in a compliant manner, but still, be decentralized and independent. So the way that it works is, we also moved to governance fully on chain. So it moved from, signaling governance for Rary DAO to fully on chain. And the way that it happens is that, the community puts forward the proposals, they're being voted on, and one of the proposals that, that came up with the Rare Foundation is exactly this rewards program. And right now, people can go on Rary.Foundation. They need to lock their Rary. It's in order to receive VRary, which is also, a mechanism that we introduced based on the model that Curve introduced first. They can lock their Rary, lock their tokens, and cast their votes for the collection that will be, eligible for the rewards. But then VRary, holding VRary, also entitles people for, some other perks. First of all, the right to vote on the larger proposals and really shape how the system will look like moving forward. But then also one of the perks, for instance, includes 0% trading fees on Rarible. So like we have been, on this path for gradual decentralization, and of course, Rarible has been, bootstrapping Rary Foundation. But then, this is one of the next steps in, yeah, just like taking it further and then paving the way for the community to govern Rarible protocol, which is the ultimate goal, is to transfer the entire ownership of the protocol in the hands of the community.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh no, I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, did you have a follow up on that?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because I don't think we've seen a marketplace really step into the governance side of things, right? Like I'm a little familiar with that because I'm going to keep referencing Rally here, but Rally was a governance token at the time, and like I say the early days of like Web3, which is like 2020, I guess, for some people, but like when we met, that was very common. Was like you would stake something or you would get it back, and it was a governance token, and you'd go on, the snapshot or proposal or whatever the case is that you wanted to do, and you would say, hey, I want to propose this idea. And I think now, like in 2022, and especially in NFT sense, we don't have that, right? Like there is, for example, when you get back Dust or you get back ApeCoin or any of those things, they're very popular NFT collections that have their own tokens, but they have not used them as like a governance token. They're more utility tokens. And I think giving the power back to the community is something very interesting. And I think it's really cool that you guys are doing that and open up those floodgates, because I think more marketplaces could take notes from that, right? Is like, hey, look, like we're have this governance token. We're really going to listen to our community, right? We're not going to just let the traders speak for themselves, but give, some power back to that. And I love the decentralized aspect of governance tokens. One segue I wanted to jump into was, what is your view on gaming in Web3? Like, have you guys worked with gaming partners? I know we're working on something together as of right now. We've officially whitelisted you guys as like one of our main marketplaces on our collectibles, which is awesome. But additionally, what has been your experience in gaming in Web3, and do you think it has a future here?
Yeah, that's a really great topic. And whenever people ask me, what I think is the kind of like the next big use case, I typically say gaming as one of the first ones, because I really do believe that, it's a match made in heaven, gaming and Web3. I do believe that it's still very early days, and Rarible partnered with different, games. We partnered with some big players like Ubisoft, and then with more Web3 native games like Avogotchi. And generally, we saw like great community response from both. I do think that we're just like not there yet in terms of the technology level, and it's really hard, to create a game in like in any case, but then, integrating the entire economics layer to that, like adds such a complexity. So I think we just like it's really we need more time, and perhaps when a big studio will come out with a game just like really fantastic, very engaging game that will have this functionality that it will open up an entirely new level of engagement from the industry, but somebody really needs to show how it can be done, because I think a lot of Web3 games, and like I love Avagachi. I have Avagachis myself, but I think the entry barrier is still really big for those Web3 games. So you really need to, understand how the economics work. And I think a lot of people who are into games just for fun, they don't really, want that and like to dig in deeper. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of time and merging the two worlds.
I want to ask, being in a marketplace, you sort of get this bird's eye view of the Web3 space, right? As different projects come on and go. Are there any broad trends that you're seeing at Rarible that you think might be interesting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I've been really noticing, recently, and even though we're in bear market, we have seen really increased interest and engagement from brands and from some more traditional companies, and like, those just coming in, and it's mostly visible in internal conversations. But I really do feel like we are in a spot where brands and companies are coming in with understanding of how it works already, because the first wave of brands jumping into this space was just like dropping NFTs, dropping whatever in whatever way, and not really putting much thought into that. And some companies like benefited from that, some did not really succeed. But I feel like right now a lot of companies are gearing up towards releasing some pretty cool stuff and understanding, the value proposition for the community building and for some of the ownership, for the AP. So I would say that in a few months we'll start seeing that new, just like new wave of that. And like from more of a Web3 standpoint, I think some of the DeFi mechanics and some of like financialization of NFTs is looking pretty interesting, but also pretty early days.
So does that mean you held on to that Taco Bell NFT that you bought a couple years back?
Well, I didn't buy one, but I actually really enjoyed one. I really loved having it on Rarible. I think that was, an example of pretty cool case that was done in a really timely manner. So, like, honestly, kudos to Taco Bell team.
That is a really cool idea, right? Like that, the fact that they actually
Hmm.
executed on that is like the perfect crossover. I thought the one with Tiffany's and the CryptoPunks, I know there was a lot of scrutiny behind the
Hmm.
price, and it kind of felt like it was a little bit of exploiting the Web3 community. But I mean, at the end of the day, you knew people were going to buy one, right? You knew people were going to buy one, and so I thought it was very cool though to see kind of both worlds collide in that frame.
Hmm.
Like a reputable brand like Tiffany's and one of the most reputable OG projects of CryptoPunks just merging together. I thought that was very cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that one as well.
Well, Masha, I know that we are excited at the Unioverse to be working with Rarible. If there are other projects out there that want to learn more about working with Rarible or getting listed on there or doing whatever with Rarible, where's the best place for them to go?
I would say Discord, absolutely. Our team is really present there. So, yeah, it can be found on Rarible Twitter in the header. So if you're not sure how to find it, yeah, I think that's the best way.
Awesome. Well, Masha Vyazemskaya, head of marketing and communications for Rarible, thank you so much for being on the Jump Pod. It was great having you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Masha.